I'm Jerry Brainum, and this video is being brought to you by Iron Mag Labs and the Applied Metabolic Newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com, the best source of information on exercise, nutrition, supplements, hormonal therapy, and the fat loss techniques that work, and other topics, www.appliedmetabolics.com. Today I want to discuss something I've discussed in the past. I did a video a couple of years ago on the belly bloat look that some professional bodybuilders display on stage in professional bodybuilding competition. I discussed the various theories. I'm going to go over them now and hopefully update and see if I could come up with again a plausible theory as to what caused this phenomenon of seeing otherwise muscular guys with etched abdominals stand on stage when they're relaxed with a stomach that protrudes in a way that's similar to that of a pregnant woman. What is causing that protrusion? Now, there's a couple of things to consider. First, the unsightly big belly was very rarely seen until the late 90s, when bodybuilders started to use what I call the anabolic triumvirate of growth hormone, insulin, and anabolic steroids, specifically insulin. When large amounts of insulin began to be common in professional bodybuilding in the anabolic repertoire, let's say, that's when suddenly these guys started stepping on stage with these unsightly huge bellies. Growth hormone had been used for several years before that. Steroids date back to the 60s. So neither one of those can be really implicated except indirectly and possibly synergistically. In other words, it's the combination of all three, growth hormone, anabolic steroids, and insulin, that may have something to do with the bloated belly look. Now, not all bodybuilders, another mystery. Why is it that not all bodybuilders, even the big guys, why don't some guys not show the bloated belly? In other words, if we assume that they all follow similar practices as far as anabolic steroid use and their dietary habits, if that was true, then all of them should show this extended belly, yet that is simply not true. In the last Olympia, several guys showed a little bit of a bloat, including the winner, Phil Heath, but some of the guys who had shown a huge bloat in the past, such as Big Ramy, actually showed flatter guts. So that also dispels another notion, another theory, I should say, of what causes the belly bloat, which I'll get to in a minute. But let's discuss the first. The first theory is excessive use of growth hormone, IGF-1, and insulin. Now, the internal organs do have receptors, growth receptors, for insulin and IGF-1. IGF-1 is a product of growth hormone. Now, if these hormones lock onto the receptors in the internal organs, it will cause the growth of internal organs. Theoretically, an excessive growth of internal organs could push out the abdomen, create the belly look. There's problems with that, though, here's the problem. Once internal organs are enlarged, they don't recede. They stay enlarged. There's no such thing as getting enlarged, liver, let's say intestines, stomach, and all that, and when you're on the drugs, and then have it revert back to normal. I've seen several professional bodybuilders who had bloated bellies when they competed. After they competed, their stomachs were flat as a board. There was no evidence of any bloat at all. That would discount the notion that their drug use caused or permanent increase of size in their internal organs. So we could throw that one out. Next one. Insulin causes an accumulation of visceral or deep-lying abdominal fat. Visceral body fat, or the body fat that lines your internal organs, especially in your abdominal area, is the most dangerous type of fat from a health point of view. It's associated with type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and insulin resistance. It's very dangerous, and insulin, of the three anabolic classes, let's say, growth hormone, steroids, and insulin is the only one known to definitely stimulate visceral fat accumulation. So it seems to be some truth to that. But here's the problem with this theory. The problem with that theory is that both growth hormone and testosterone are known to inhibit the development of visceral fat. So even if you take a fairly good amount of insulin, theoretically, the concomitant use of growth hormone and testosterone or anabolic steroids should basically block the increased visceral fat that is stimulated by insulin, with one possible exception. If you're eating a huge amount of calories, remember, insulin produces fat only in the presence, or I should say promotes fat deposition, mainly in the presence or when accompanied by a over intake of calories. In other words, excessive caloric intake, and insulin is a prescription for increased body fat, and a lot of that body fat will be in the visceral area. So I would not rule out insulin as a possible cause completely, but it's, again, I would say it's not really likely. Another one that I find kind of amusing, which is just absolutely absurd, is you see this again on various websites and blogs when they try and explain the bloated belly look. This has to do with the use of heavy weight causing a bulging of the abdominal area. Like when you do squats, for example, or leg press, some exercise cause your stomach to kind of stick out. According to this theory, if you do this regularly, your stomach is going to stay bulging, in other words. And that's absolutely absurd because, again, I see guys all the time with tiny, slim waists. When they do their squats or do the heavy lifts, their stomach bulges, goes right back down to normal as soon as they complete the set. This one's completely absurd and so stupid, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But here's the one that's my favorite of all, though. Of all the theories about what causes abdominal bloat, this is the one that makes me laugh because it's so absurd that anybody with any knowledge at all would just laugh it off. And yet this is the one that's most commonly said to be the reason to explain the bloated belly look in bodybuilders. What is it? The abdominal bloat is the result of consuming excessive food and calories, right? In other words, they're saying that here's the way it goes. The pro bodybuilders eat so many calories up to the contest. Some of them will consume 8, 9, 10,000 calories a day. They're constantly eating, and the food just accumulates in their abdomen, causing their abdomen to bulge out again like a pregnant woman. This is so absurd. It goes completely against every law of physiology. There's a little problem with this theory. It's called digestion. When you eat food, the food is digested, and the longest it takes to pass out of you is about 12 to 24 hours. There's no way that a bodybuilder can pack in so much food that their stomach is going to bulge out to the extent that it does in these bodybuilders that you see on stage. It's not going to happen, because if it really was, if the stomach was that extended, and the food wasn't passing through, in other words, it wasn't passing through the intestines, it would cause blockages that would require a trip to the emergency room. So this notion that they're getting, and then somebody might say, well, Jerry, no, you don't understand. The food is digested, but, they eat so much food that it causes the stomach to extend outwards and bulge out. But that, again, is ridiculous, because the way the stomach works, the cells are almost like an accordion. When you put food in it, the cells expand. When the food leaves the stomach, the cells contract again, and the stomach goes back to a smaller size. It does not stay extended like that. If it did, again, that's a disease state that would require medical intervention. So let's forget that stuff. That's absurd, this stuff about eating food. Another one is that bodybuilders show bloat because they have short torsos. Again, senseless, makes no sense at all. Plenty of bodybuilders, especially, let's say, guys in the 212 class in the Olympia, some of these guys had slight belly bloat, nothing compared to the heavier guys, but it had nothing to do with the fact that they had short torsos. Again, absurd and stupid. And another one is using the supplement creatine produces a water retention effect that is particularly evident in the abdominal area, producing the bloated appearance. Again, stupid. It doesn't happen. Yes, you can get a little bit of water retention if you do what they call a creatine load, which involves taking 25 to 30 grams of creatine for about 6 days. You get water retention, but it's not specifically in the abdominal area. There's not enough fluid that accumulates from creatine to cause a bloated look only in the abdomen. And remember, there's another thing to consider is that, when I competed many years ago in the era of Arnold Schwarzenegger, most of the bodybuilders of that area went through something in the off season. They tended to do this technique called bulking up. where they eat vast amounts of food in order to get bigger in between contests, with the notion that, you know, if you put added body weight on, you'll get stronger, you can lift heavier weights, and hopefully when you cut down by going on a diet, that the increased muscle that you develop by using heavier weights while bulking up will be largely retained, so you'll look bigger in the next contest. But here's the point. We also ate vast quantities of food. I myself, when I was bulking up, I would drink several gallons of raw milk. And yeah, sure as hell did bloat me out. My stomach did stick out like a pregnant woman. But within a couple hours, it went right back down. It never stayed permanently out. And I myself and others, we were eating thousands of calories. Yet you don't have to believe me. Look at photos of guys back in the 70s. See how many bloated guts, bloated bellies you see on stage. The answer is you won't see any, because they didn't exist, and we ate just as much food. That should cancel out this stupid idea that eating a lot of food gives you that bloated look on stage. So what does cause it? All right, we eliminate all the silly theories. What does cause it? I think that I would not rule out the extreme use of growth hormone, insulin, and IGF-1. Again, these things do cause growth of the internal organs. They do cause some localized changes that can, you know, possibly cause a bloat. And you can't escape the fact that the bloated appearance only started to appear with the widespread use of insulin along with steroids and growth hormone. Before that, it was very, very rare to see a guy on stage with a bloated abdomen. So it has something to do with insulin, steroid, the combination of insulin, steroids, and growth hormone. Exactly what, I'm not really sure. I couldn't tell you. I don't think anyone knows. However, I do know that growth hormone stimulates the release of a adrenal hormone called aldosterone. Aldosterone is known to cause extreme sodium and water retention. So if you get enough of an aldosterone release from growth hormone, you know, you might cause a bloated look, and in some guys it might even cause a bloated belly. And insulin, by the way, also causes an aldosterone release. So you have two hormones that these guys taking in large amounts that can cause a huge release of aldosterone, which is a water-retaining hormone that might have something to do with the bloated the bloated gut look. Sometimes it could be a little situation where it could be a medical condition, irritable bowel syndrome. It's a possibility, not likely, quite frankly, not likely. I think one of the main possibilities, the one that makes sense to me from a scientific point of view, is a hypertrophy of the abdominal wall, in combination with a lack of tone or weakness in the transversalis abdominis muscle. Let me explain. The abdominals, people don't realize the abdominals, you know, you see a guy with a flat stomach and, you know, the abs and the cubes and all that, but people don't realize the rectus abdominal muscle anatomically is not flat. It's not straight. It's actually curved. It's convex like this. It's curved. Now, think about all the growth hormone drugs, all the anabolic drugs these guys are using. It causes the growth of all muscles throughout the body, including the abdominals. When the abdominals enlarge, what's going to happen? Are they going to stay flat and the abs get thicker? No, the abs can get thicker if you exercise them, but when the abdominal muscles hypertrophy, they extend outwards. They extend outwards. Now, that alone will not be enough to give you this massive bloated look that the bodybuilders show. However, there's another muscle called the transversalis abdominal muscle. You can't see it. It's underneath the rectus abdominis. It's an internal muscle. What does it do? It helps to flatten the stomach. It's like a natural girdle effect. It pulls the stomach in. It flattens it. If you get a combination of extreme hypertrophy of the rectus abdominis muscles along with let's say a relative weakness or lack of tone of the transversalis muscle, you theoretically will get that bulging ab. You'll get that look where you have when the guy is standing relaxed, he has these huge bulging stomach, but when he flexes, he has ripped solid abs. That condition that I just described would produce that look without a doubt. Nobody has tested this out. This is just a theory, quite honestly, but I think it's the most plausible theory. Let me give you another piece of evidence. How many of these guys have you seen? The guys who have the bulging stomachs, it's usually when they're standing relaxed. Because as I say, when they flex, they have ripped up abs. How many of these guys have you seen when they're posing, how many have done what they call the vacuum pose? What's the vacuum pose? Usually you put your hands behind the head, you suck your stomach all the way in. If your transversalis muscles are weak, you're not going to be able to do that pose. Now, here's something I've noticed. I haven't seen a single one of these guys who have the bloated abdomen, they have never ever done a vacuum pose, which tends to make me believe my theory about the hypertrophy of the abdominal muscles coupled with a weakness of the transversalis abdominis is correct. So I should also point out, just to be complete, that I've known a couple of bodybuilders who've had the bloated abdominal appearance, who've undergone medical scan tests, including magnetic resonance imaging, that shows exactly what's going on in the abdominal area. And guess what? Nothing showed up. There was no food in the abdominal. There's no residual food in the abdominal and the gut area. There was no evidence of extremely hypertrophied internal organs. In other words, everything looked normal. However, what these scans would not show is the extreme hypertrophy of the rectus abdominis coupled with a relative weakness of the transversalis abdominis muscle. So that's my theory. Again, this video was presented to you by Ironman Labs. I'm sorry, ironmaglabs.com, along with the Applied Metabolics newsletter. If you want the best information on nutrition, exercise science, supplements, hormonal therapy, anti-aging research, fat loss techniques that work, and many, many more, ergogenic aids, subscribe today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter.